In this video, I want to share the mindset shift that I made in my 30s, which is still just as effective now that I'm 64. I just got back from a trip to Portugal. I'm glad to be home. Don't get me wrong, it was fun. I drank far too much wine and I got bitten to death by mozzies, but a great time was had by all. And whilst I was out there, I didn't make a single video or shoot any footage, which is why I've not posted on this channel now for a couple of weeks. The reason being, I was spending precious time with my family. My son flew in from London to spend time with my wife and her parents. The weather was fantastic, but it's now time to get back in the saddle and to continue to make some videos to share my experiences of life with you. For many years, I've had a motto: as you think, so you become. I've even got it written on a pebble. This pebble is very significant. I picked up this pebble on a beach with my toddler son years and years ago, and I wrote the phrase on there. Don't know if you can see it, not quite sure if the autofocus is going to work. And that's been my motto for the best part of 30 years. On the other side of the pebble, I've also got act, don't react. So these two things have been the quotes that have guided me through the last 30 odd years of my life. I've held them very close to my heart during that time. They are behind any successes that I've had. And I can't believe that it's over 30 years since I found that motto. I was on a cruise holiday with my wife and my mum and dad, who are now long since passed unfortunately, and her mum and dad, who are still here. The six of us were sailing in the Caribbean on Cunard QE2. I was only 31 years of age, and I went to a lecture, a seminar, which is held on those ships when they have sea days, and they were handing out these little plastic discs with those two phrases on. And that phrase in particular, as you think, so you become, really stuck with me. Now a lot has changed since then, and I'm always interested to find out, how am I thinking? Are things still the same? Do things that I used as an anchor, and that phrase has very much been an anchor for me, do those phrases still apply now that I'm a man in his 60s and I've been retired for over 20 years? I think they do. When I found that quote, I'd only just started my business. I was slowly and painfully finding my way in the world as an entrepreneur. And back then, I cared way too much about what people thought of me. And I was also in my head about things like comparing myself with other people. I really struggled when I was in my early 30s to find my own identity. And that quote helped me massively. It enabled me to put something I'd been talking about for years into an actual vision and a goal, and to execute some steps to make it happen. I was always full of BS when I was in my 20s. When I first met my wife, I'd be 22 years of age, and I was just going into an industry that was the one that I went on to be successful in. And I told her at the time, even though I was only at the earliest rung as a junior, that one day I was going to have my own business and be a millionaire. I can't imagine why she decided to stick with me, but she did, and in a couple of weeks we're going to be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. So that phrase became my anchor. It was a way of reminding myself to keep moving forward towards my vision. It was a way of helping me to understand that I'll figure it out as I go along. It's about having trust in yourself and making leaps of faith and taking risks, even though you don't know what the outcome will be. And yes, I do think it's as relevant now at 64 as it was when I was 34. I think you inherently know when you connect with the idea of something. Like retirement, for example. It feels exciting and terrifying at the same time. But before you even have the chance to pursue it, it's easy to hold yourself back because you don't know how it will turn out. And that's frightening. So you don't make the leap. When I had the opportunity to retire at 44 years of age, and yes, I know that's really young, and for any of you who want to know how that came to pass, the business that I'd started when I was 30 grew to a size where it was an asset. It was still a small business, but it was an asset, and somebody decided to buy it. That gave me a pot of money, which is the equivalent of a pension pot, and that's how I was able to retire at 44. But despite having that financial security, I was terrified. I hadn't known anything else but that sector since I was 22 years of age. But you never know what an opportunity will lead to, and you never know how impactful something will be until you've done it. And if you don't take the leap and take the risk, you'll never know. There are a million things that could go wrong, that could make it the wrong choice, but you only need a few things to go right for it to be the right choice. When it comes to these sort of giant leaps of faith, like quitting your job, taking the trip of a lifetime, even meeting somebody for the first time, it always leads back to that four-letter word, risk. Retirement is a giant leap of faith. It is a risk. In my early 40s, I was stagnating. My business had been declining for a few years. My relationship with my business partner was on the rocks. I wasn't meeting new people or experiencing new things. I was drifting, quite frankly. It's so easy to be stuck in a bubble of your own making, but it's important to know when to push to break out of the bubble. Selling my business at 44 years of age and retiring was the push that I needed. It's important to know when something will be a healthy push to break out of the bubble, and it can be intimidating to open yourself up to risk and not know how things are going to work out. But you're never going to know what's on the other side unless you're willing to take that first step. Taking that first step will enable you to see where to go next. The beauty of taking risks is that it also forces you to adapt and change and be creative in ways that you might not have expected. It opens you up to seeing things differently and to learning from different people, and maybe even finding things that you weren't looking for. There will always be some kind of risk when it comes to doing something which is completely out of the ordinary. But honestly, I just think that's the name of the game. You can't hide from that forever, and dependent on what season of life you're in, you're either going to say yes and jump, or you're going to say no. Both answers are valid. It depends where you are in life. If it's a yes, sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. But either way, you'll learn something from it. I think you have a certain naive confidence that everything's going to be okay when you're in early adulthood. Maybe the years and the experience make you a little bit more cynical the older you get. If there's one thinking from my early adulthood that I'd like to take into my 60s, it's that naivety, it's that thinking everything's going to be okay. It's quite a claim that a motto from my early adulthood, which I discovered in my early 30s, is still applicable now that I'm 64. But it is. It doesn't matter what age you are or what season of life you are in. Whatever you're thinking is your reality. As you think, so you become. If you think you're going to have a good retirement, you will. If you think you're going to have a bad retirement, you will. If you think you can't quit work, you won't. If you think you can quit work, you can. If I hadn't have retired when I was 44, I can't imagine all the things I would have missed out on. My young son was 7 at the time, and up until that point, my contact with him had been fairly brief because I was always working. After 7 years of age, I got to spend time with him for everything. I got to go to all the sports events. I got to watch him play cricket, play rugby. I travelled around the country with him, and I wouldn't have done any of that if I hadn't have retired. Not just that, me, my wife and him, we travelled the world. We went to countries that we would never have gone to. We went to Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Brazil, the west coast of America, the east coast of America. We travelled extensively throughout that period. Up until then, we never had. It was just a couple of weeks here or there, usually Portugal. Thinking about who you are and what you want to be and what you think you can do makes all the difference, regardless of what age you are. But it's particularly important in retirement. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun to look back over the last 20 years and see how my favourite motto was still applicable even though I'm now 64. And safe to say that that leap of faith I made at 44 has worked out well. It didn't end in disaster. I won't lie to you, there were some struggles along the way. There were some failures, dead ends, cul-de-sacs, sharp bends where I nearly went off the mountainside. But it all ended up good in the end because that motto was always there for me. As you think, so you become. And I knew I was going to have a successful retirement, and I worked out how to get there. So can you. Let me tell you about the things I've experienced over the last 20 years, including the failures. They've all been experiments that I've been able to learn from, that have enabled me to get where I am today, in good health, happy, and enjoying my retirement. Long may that continue. What about you? What has been your experience? Please share in the comments to help other people. And if this video resonated with you, you might want to watch this one next. It's the 5 things I wish I knew before I retired. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.